Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Thanks for being here. I love doing these interviews and we have a familiar face here. So number one, if you are on this channel, you might be thinking about moving abroad, moving to Costa Rica. You're looking at Central America in general. You're definitely in the right place. Definitely, well, check out the rest of this channel for more information. And today we have Gabriel and his team member, Brian. And we've had Gabriel on here before. He's kind of our financing guru. If I have someone who's looking for financing, I send them over to Gabriel because he's going to be able to look at your situation, hear what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what kind of financing you need. And then he'll be able to either guide you in that direction, help make the process easier because it can be very complicated, lots of red tape down here. So ideally, he helps make it easier, but also can tell you, like, help you carve the best way path to what you're trying to do. At least that's what I gather is that you do. Is that right, Gabriel?
Yes, correct. Thank you. Thank you for the invite. It's been a while since we actually connected. Really happy to be back on the channel here and helping expats with financing options in Costa Rica. So, thank you for having
Yeah.
us.
So I thought today you could give us a little bit of an update because I know things have changed in the financing realm. You reached out to me to kind of let me know, hey, Sarah, there's been some changes. So I like to keep things updated here on the channel. So what have been some of the changes, I guess, in financing here in Costa Rica?
Yeah, I'm just going to take a quick step back because the reality is that, go back 3 years when we started CCS, so Central Capital Solutions, we encountered, as you had said, a lot of red tape. Many of the banks weren't necessarily open to financing expats or foreigners, not necessarily just expat, but foreigners as well, non-residents. Whereas the market's slowly but surely shifting. Banks are opening up. They see the opportunity. They see that there's a lot of people moving down here, whether it's for investments, whether it's only for investments, or whether they're looking to actually relocate here. Whether they're selling everything in their country and then buying something here for the long term, the short term, etc. The banks see the opportunity in the influx that's coming in. It's a lot of money. So people obviously, expat generally speaking, are not necessarily looking for houses that are going to be in the 100 or 150K mark either. So, they want to be by the beach. They want to be able to rent it out when they're not here for the investing purposes and so on. So the banks have actually opened up quite a bit. Being totally frank, totally upfront, I mean, a lot of clients are actually going directly to the banks as well. But then, as you had mentioned, once again, they see that there's a lot of red tapes. All the documents are in Spanish. It becomes really, really complicated. And the banks still have that, I call it the darn checklist, because the reality is that there's going to be 72 points, bullet points, one after another. And then bullet point 5, 10, 15, 22 are going to be the same darn document. But they're still going to go through that checklist and they're going to ask you, even if though they might have to ask you 5 or 6 times throughout the process, they're going to ask you for that same document over and over again. So it's something that gets very frustrating for people, not excluding all the other things that can happen throughout the process. So hence the reason, once again, that we're here. We come and facilitate a lot of these step-by-step, the processes. Most of our application is all done online. So for us, it's very simple. You upload all the documents there as well. So it's not an exchange of emails and I lost the document, I don't know where it is, I can't find it, and so on and so forth, right? The other part is most of the banks, they still don't have every processes down in a proper timeline. So sometimes they're going to go back and forth on a couple different things, and it gets very screwy for people's heads. So that's something that where we come facilitate once again. We have the clear process. We've done multiple clients in different banks. So regardless of the banks, sometimes there's a little differences left and right, but in truth, most of the processes are similar, but the banks still don't have that pact. So it becomes very complicated for clients in general. So that's one of the good things, meaning that the banks are opening up towards all the expats and financing in that realm as well. So from there, we can easily pre-approve a client. We can easily help the client pass through the pipeline as well. The time frame is going to be slightly shorter than the past, anywhere between 2 to 3 months, depending on the client's situation. 2 months is a lot more realistic now than it was in the past, but depending on his, once again, the client's situation, it can take up to 3 months as well. So in a nutshell, I mean, it's much easier. It's much more streamlined, but there's still a lot of nick and knacks that the clients are just not used to because, we're used to in Canada and the States or North America, generally speaking, where everything is done online. We can get an approval, not just a pre-approval, but an approval inside of a week, and everybody's happy and we're moving forward. Whereas here, it doesn't work that way still. So that's pretty much what's happening now.
Or I was on mute. I've been a little bit sick.
Cool.
It's interesting, yeah, that it's taking less time now, because I remember when I was trying to go through this process, I don't know if you remember my whole financing nightmare that I went through myself. Um, yeah, that's good that it seems to be taking less time for people then. And then I know, and I think in our last videos, you went, maybe can you list off some of the different options now that you see that are most available or that people seem to be doing the most these days?
Yeah, of course. The reality is that it depends on the client's project. So, just to take a step back on this as well, CCS, we're like a one-stop shop for financing options. And regardless if it's in Costa Rica, Panama, Dominican Republic, we have some options in Nicaragua and slowly but surely in Mexico as well. So as you can see, we're spreading our wings a little more across the Central America slash Caribbean side of things. So that's really great. But when it comes to facilitating the process, I mean, generally speaking, a client that's going to be applying, one of the biggest issues is the fact that oftentimes they're just not ready. They don't know the market. They don't understand what they're purchasing either. They don't know, we call it red tape, but in reality, there's a lot of due diligence on certain properties as well that sometimes can get a little more complicated. But if we take just a general process and we're going through there, once again, it's going to take about 2 months. The terms and conditions are slightly sexier. I like to call it, to say it that way. When it comes to interest rate, when it comes to amortization, we have a different reality as well. The Canadians are used to an amortization of example 25 years, but then it's going to be broken down in 5-year terms. Whereas once again, here, it's not like that, right? It's like in the States. So if it's on 20 years, it's going to be an amortization on 20 years period. The interest rate is going to be anywhere between 8 and 9.5-ish, sometimes 10%, depending on the banks. And some banks, and this is, I like to make sure that the clients are aware, some banks are going to come in and they're going to say, yeah, no worries, we can do it at 7, extreme example, or 7.5 points. And so the clients obviously are going to start the application. After 2 months, they're going to realize, because then they actually get the term sheet, that it's actually going to be, yeah, 7% or 7.5%, but only for the first year. Afterwards, it's going to be prime plus, and depending on the banks, different banks use different prime rates. Your interest rate is going to be 9.5 to 10 to sometimes 10.5 points, which doesn't become very sexy, because then for the following 19 years, as an example, if we take 20-year amortization, the reality is that then the client's going to be paying a lot more than what he would be with other banks. So sometimes, it's marketing stuff, right? So the banks are going to be promoting, and they're going to be saying, yes, we can finance this. And then, after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, then the clients are actually going to be told, no, you know what, we can't anymore. And they're not going to have a reason. So this is where, once again, we come in and we were able to pre-approve the properties prior to, actually moving a client down the process, so that there's no wasted time for anybody. Because if a client's looking for a property, the real estate market is still very hot, depending on the region, depending on the properties, depending on a whole bunch of different factors. But it's more the fact that the clients usually want to move rather quickly on a property. So if it takes 3 months to close on a mortgage, then it complicates everything else. So once again, at a high level, that's pretty much what's happening on the market right now. Certain banks are going to be a little more aggressive depending on the regions as well. For example, the Guanacaste region obviously is still going to be and always will be a hotspot. The Punta Arenas, so when we look at the Pacific Central side, so Orochal, Uvita, Dominical, Jaco, and so on, it's going to be still a hotspot as well. So that's the financing options there. There's no problem. When we look at the GAM region, so the Central Valley, around the San Jose area, it's a hit or miss. We never know. So we definitely need to do a little more research on where the property is and so on. If we look at the East Coast, slowly but surely the banks are opening up. It's not an easy sell, to be very frank, but it's something that can be done. It just depends on the property, depends where, depends on concessions, concession land, and so on as well. So as you can see, the banks are opening up their horizons in different regions of the country as well. And depending on the finance option, the finance amount, sorry, it's going to be case by case as well. So certain banks are going to, finance all the way up to 70% LTV. So based on the appraisal or the purchase price, depending on which one's the lowest. But on the flip side, some banks, depending on how much you're actually going to be borrowing, so let's say it's $500,000, then you know what, they'll finance 70%. But if you're looking to borrow $1 million, then it's only going to be 55%. So there's a bunch of different criteria with a bunch of different banks. And so, once again, we're here to help alleviate that path of, I'm going to try with this bank, I'm going to try with that bank. And then some clients are going to try with 2, 3 different banks. And then they just end up, dropping everything, because then it's just way too complicated.
True. And also I'm thinking from the owner's perspective, you know, the client going from bank to bank, the owner at some point who's trying to sell the property at some point might be like, you know, this isn't working for me, you know, have somebody else now who's got cash, or, you know, they've already been approved, you know, their process is going faster. Like, sorry. So yeah, that's,
Totally.
so are you primarily
Totally.
just doing banks now? So that's like what you guys are doing?
No, we have the banking option, but we also it's another option, but it depends on what the client's objectives are. I mean, we do have private lending options, whether it's through us or whether it's through other groups. There's a definite need there as well. So sometimes it's just going to be a bridge loan. The client is, you know, he's looking for a property. He only wants, I don't know, 40% LTV as an example. So he gets a bridge loan because after a year and a half, then he's going to be coming into some cash because he's selling his property in Canada or the States or elsewhere. And then from there, he's just going to reimburse everything and done deal. So it could be just a quick bridge like that. Or we've done a couple of situations where the client's going to take a private loan because he wants to close on the property quick, because, you know, it's an actual a fire sale and it's an incredible price and it's incredible property and so on. So when we look at the private lending option, you know, the disbursement time is anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. You know, depending obviously on a couple different factors, but 3 to 4 weeks is a good ballpark. So sometimes they're going to borrow $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on the private lending side, and then we'll convert that after 6, 12 months or whatever the case is into an actual mortgage with the bank, because whatever reason, the client indebtedness ratio might be slightly too high, or he might be his credit score is just slightly too low, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it's a bunch of options in that case. And we also have the retirement funds. So this is more a specific case. It's one-offs, but in reality, if a client has 401ks in the States, then we can help with our partner that's based out of Florida. So the 401ks are then, you know, converted to self-directed IRAs, and then we're able to invest them in Costa Rica. Just like in Canada, it's called RRSPs, or REERs for the Frenchy side of things. The process is slightly different, but the results are the same anyways. So you're using your retirement funds as a self-directed investment, which then you decide where you want to put it, and it has to be in a property. So
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool. You guys seem to do a lot. What would you say is your typical client demographic? Let's say like your person that comes through. What kind of people are you dealing with, or what have you been seeing the most lately?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. It's still in 3 parts. I just think that the age groups are different, meaning that you're going to have the savvy investor that already has a bunch of properties, you know, whether it's back home or across the world, that just wants to invest. So he doesn't put all his eggs in the same basket. So he doesn't purchase a property cash. He just wants financing. For him, it's more he runs the numbers, and then if the numbers make sense, including a mortgage, then go. So that's typical number 1. Number 2 is going to be the families. So we got a bunch of different families. And ironically enough, the demographic has actually gotten a little younger. I call it the Bitcoin kids. You know, there's a lot of the younger generation that had money in Bitcoin, you know, 1, 2, 3 years ago, that they've put their money in, let's say 18, 19, 20 years old. And we have some 24, 25, 26 years olds that are actually applying for a mortgage because they'd like to, you know, purchase a property, and then their money is coming from cryptocurrencies. So, and some of those have young families, but depending on the region as well, you know, whether you're in Punta Arenas or in Guanacaste, then the price point is going to be different. So the age bracket is going to be different as well. And the last one is just going to be the retirees, or, you know, early retirees. So anywhere 50 plus up, slightly baby boomer-ish type of situation, that are, you know, looking for a place that I just want to go settle down. Sometimes it's going to be snowbirds, 6 months out of the year. They're going to be coming down here and then renting it for the other 6 months, or they actually, I'm planning my retirement, which I'm sure you have a bunch of those types of inquiries as well. Planning my retirement in 1 or 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case is, and I want to be able to move down to Costa Rica. First, how do I make it happen? Second, what are my options, my financing options?
Absolutely.
So.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you explaining that. And that way, maybe some people who are listening might think, oh, I'm in that kind of demographic, or that's my situation. So that's why I'd like to ask that. And I know we have Brian here, and I'm sorry, Brian, we haven't really gotten to chat with you much. Brian, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and maybe tell us about your role with the company as well?
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm Brian Patterson. I'm new to CCS. I come with 25 plus years. I say plus because I don't need to add on to higher than 25, but 25 years experience in the United States is doing mortgages and financing options, even on commercial real estate as well. Um, um, I'm just learning from Gabriel, all the ins and outs of CCS and helping to drive us into the future. I'm going around and promoting our services to people like yourselves in Costa Rica. So, and I myself am a client of CCS, so I can tell you what it's like from the driver's seat or the passenger seat, more appropriately, what it's like dealing with the banks and the ins and outs and all that stuff. So, I'm not only an employee, I'm also a client. So.
All right, cool. And how's your time been here in Costa Rica so far? So you're down there in the southern zone as well.
Yeah, we're in Playa Hermosa, Uvita area. We love it. My wife and I moved down here. We're part of the pre-retirement people, like Gabriel mentioned. Just looking for a slower pace of life and tropical paradise to do it in, and we found it here in Costa Rica, and so we love it. We're exploring the countryside as often as we can get, and just trying to fit in with our community and bring some value to the people that we can bring value to.
Cool. Awesome. I appreciate you being here too. Anything
Yeah,
else
thank
that
you.
I guess would be important or people should know, I guess, in the financing realm? I know your guys' information, will be down below in the description. So if anyone needs to get in contact with them, you can let me know, or I'll have their information down there, and hopefully it can help you with your loan dreams here in Costa Rica. But anything else that you guys want to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add we're also I'm sure a lot of people are looking at the AI and all the artificial intelligence that's moving forward and everything else. We also have our own that's going to be available in the short term. I can't give a date right now because we're still in testing phases, but with our streamlining and the AI that we're going to be having, so our AI bot will be able to pre-approve clients directly from their screens. So with the the requirements from the different banks here in Costa Rica, which is going to be our main market to start off with, and then eventually we'll move over and transition to the other countries as well. But being able to have the conversation directly with our AI and being able to ask a bunch of different questions and getting them Mr. Mrs. anybody also pre-approved, whether it's on the property side, whether it's on the financial side, is going to bring a lot of clarity to clients or just people inquiring in general, right? So sometimes people don't necessarily want to talk to somebody right away. They'd like to gather more information, or they're just looking. Well, then we're going to have that readily available. That's going to be on our website. We're going to be sharing with you, Sarah, as well. And then we'll be able to help clients in the early stages so that afterwards people can wrap their heads around on how everything works, what's going to look like, what's a payment schedule look like, what are the fees, the structure, the time frame, and so on and so forth. So that's the next step for us.
That's great. I love that. That's going to be a good time saver for you too, right?
Yes, yes, that too.
Mhm.
Instead of having a bunch of different emails on, what I'm inquiring about, well, then, no problem. We're here to help and we're happy to help. But sometimes people, at 11 p.m. on their couch, they have a bunch of different questions. Well, you'll be able to get answers at that time versus just waiting for us to answer. So
Totally. I love that. Well, awesome. I appreciate you guys coming on here and giving us that update.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Questions, comments, anybody, please feel free and we can go from there. So
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for those that are watching. If you guys, I mentioned that their information will be down below, or if you need to get in touch, you can reach out to me. And I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.